Yeah.
Okay, we should.
Hey, we back?
Are we back? Can you guys hear us? I'm
Can
sorry
you
about
guys
that.
hear us?
I think so. It says, yeah, we're back. All right.
Back. Thank you.
I'm
Okay.
very,
So
very sorry about that. Yeah.
yeah, so I capture your question. I just wanted to finish what we were talking about on layer
Yes.
two before
Sure.
we move on to that. So
Yeah, yeah.
so the importance is, so we've started our layer two solution, and we are building two, so we can decide which one works best for us. So
Sure.
we are building out and testing Sealer, as I'm sure people won't be surprised. Is that Carlos typing? Are you typing?
Yeah, I'm not typing anymore.
So we are testing on Sealer to see whether that's the best fit for us. But we're also building out a Polygon solution on Matic, and we'll go with the one that we think is the
Interesting.
best of the
Wow. That's wonderful. That's really cool. I obviously, if I had recorded all of my streams, I could have pointed to our conversation around Sealer and said, "Hey, you guys go take a look at it and see what they're doing." But I didn't. I'm sorry. We'll have the conversation again. So, I mean, obviously, we're all believers in Sealer. Many of us are investors in Sealer, but
it's whether it's the best fit for TWA.
That's right. I love that.
We need to look at both. Maybe we end up with using sections of each. I don't know, but the point is that my team is so good and so advanced that they can build both solutions and look at it, which again is a really cool thing to be able to say and to do. And most teams wouldn't have the skill or bandwidth to do that. Why is this important? This is not just an opportunity to say, yeah, my team's amazing. No,
but they are. You know,
they are doing some pretty sensational stuff. But the important thing behind that is, once we get layer two solution sorted, then using TWA as a token to enter the system is the way. At the moment, people are going through using WETH to enter the system for the funds and everything like that, because it's easier because of the gas implications with an ERC20 token.
Sure.
Once we sort layer two out, then you can go in with the native token TWA into the complex funds, like you could with any other ERC20 token, USDC. You could do all that today now, but it's too expensive because of the Thales gas issue. At that point, having TWA available on a centralized exchange then becomes a huge thing, because all of a sudden now you can say, just go and buy TWA either from Uniswap if you're a Uniswapper, or go and buy it if you've got some gas issues, go and buy it from a central exchange, Whitebit, go and buy it from Whitebit. Yeah. And it doesn't matter that you're going and buying $50 worth, because that $50 worth is going to only cost you under $10 to actually get it into the fund. Which point then somebody can come and do that every 2 or 3 days as money comes in. We can look at Indian markets. We can look at markets where pulling together $50 or $100 is harder than it might be in some other markets, and then we get more adoption, which is the thing you're talking about. So the point I'm making is this whole idea about the reason why we've got Whitebit there is, it might not seem apparent now, and it might be, it's not doing a lot for the token price or anything like that, but it will for the reasons that we just talked about.
Right.
Because when we get that layer 2 solution, is people are going to be entering the system, frankly, with TWA, and then the whole liquidity, LP tokens, other tokens, and everything like that all gets handled by the system in the background to apportion that TWA value that they're brought in, and that then does what we need it to in terms of helping with token price, etc.
Sure.
And then finally, on that, then just while we're on the exchanges, we've got plans with the exchange to do some marketing with them mid-April. We've got that booked in now. They haven't confirmed the exact date, but we've booked in like a slot, for want of another word, mid-April. So there'll be some exciting stuff being run for us by Whitebit mid-April that's going to help with exposure to the token, more people holding the token, all that kind of good stuff.
Sure.
So going back to your question, Jared, just to loop that back in the context of your question, in the context of everything I just sort of fleshed out, do you want to re-ask your question so it frames it?
Yeah. No, I do, because, well, so it has to do more with like the yield farming aspect of it. So that's where I was going.
Okay. Right.
which I think is next on our agenda. Is it okay if I go there?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, because I see, what you're doing in the future, and if you're bullish on the space and bullish on the idea of having widespread exposure, it's great. So that alone is very, very cool and worth investing. In fact, I bought TWA initially just because of it, without knowing any of the stuff was coming. Right, like I had no idea. That was now months ago this month, but there is a yield farming aspect to it, which obviously manifests in a few different ways. And so I'm kind of going 2 steps ahead here. But if you're going to a layer 2 solution, what I want to do is like I have my funds invested and there's a yield on it, which is unbelievable. I want to be able to just like click a button and reinvest into the fund. So maybe I'm going 2 steps too far, but is that in your roadmap, and you want to talk about it like kind of holistically for me?
Yeah, sure. So compounding for sure.
Right.
And layer 2 is going to let you be able to do that in a cost-effective way, which is the key, right?
Right, exactly.
So, in terms of having a single button to do it's really complicated.
Sure.
So the buy and supply contract, I think we shared it before, but there's 20 plus transactions going on when you hit buy and supply.
Right.
Already in that contract. So in terms of what it's doing, if you come in with WETH, it's selling part of your WETH. I won't go through it all now, but there's 20 transactions.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of things going on, and it's quite a step to say, okay, the TWA that I've got already, unstake that, take that TWA, sell part of that. It's a lot of rework. And frankly, I think what I want people to do is stay engaged with it. So if you want to compound, then come back and engage with the chat and talk part of the community and do all that kind of stuff, because to do that across all of the different contracts, as well as we're actually having to update every time we pull a token and swap it into another one and put it, that whole contract has to be rewritten with those criteria in it. It just becomes really difficult to do. So it's slightly different than, and I know people will say, yeah, but hold on, I go and do this on this token where they've got a pair, you're like
different.
Ethan something else, and I just press one button, or I don't have to do anything, and it compounds. It's like, yeah, if I'm just giving you pairs, right, to do stuff, and they're not doing any kind of balancing or anything, I could do that. It would be ready it'd be ready tomorrow night. But this is very, very different from what we're.
But Adrian, the amazing team we're talking about, and plus, if I'm not asking you,
it's not like it can't be done, but.
Yeah, no. I get it.
To be honest,
on a layer 2, if you built it, if it gains massive adoption, you can just continue to reinvest. That's different. But I understand that. That's me being greedy and going, ooh, can you make this even easier for me as someone who doesn't really know what to do? But I get it.
But for real, once so the way blockchain works is that as long as people start figuring out that they can do cheap transactions, they're gonna do so many that they're gonna make layer 2 just as expensive as layer 1.
Yeah, that's right.
But and we have to see how much leeway we got, right? Because on Ethereum, people, if you looked at things that were being done last year, people were way more they didn't think of the gas as much, right? And now we're seeing a lot of optimizations and stuff around that. Now, when we got to the layer 2's environment, it's basically a reset, and there may be we have to basically see how the meta evolves, right? And maybe all of that becomes possible because or maybe there's a secondary service that does that, right?
Yeah.
But
that's a really good. Where there are a lot of secondary service and agents, and maybe we can do things with keeper scripts and fetch. Yeah, exactly. So it's not at this stage. I'd say it's not my primary focus. My primary focus is to give funds and more yield farms to make profit with, and then you manage that profit, right? because that's more important than me burning time trying to find ways to manage the profit you've got when I could give you things to make more profit with.
Yeah, sure.
Understand what I mean.
Very fair. Very fair.
It's about making sure that we focus in the right areas. And so I guess the final bit is talking about yield farming and rewards and everything. Obviously, we had smart contracts, complicated things, and people get tired working on things, and we had a bit of a hiccup. But it's about as much on projects as how you deal with issues as anything else.
No doubt.
And so obviously recently we distributed the yield farm rewards that have been earned in the Universe Fund out to everybody. And so I wanted to just take the time to say thanks, because everybody was so chilled and so cool. And that's such a rare thing in crypto. And not everybody, Telegram project channel, is anything like as chilled and relaxed and mature as what we got. And everybody just settled down, and we took care of it. We took care of business for everyone. And it's nice to see that, I'm getting lots of DMs where people are saying, okay, now I can see how I'm making money on the yield farms with TWA. Right. I've got it in my pocket, and I can see how this earns money for me. And now hopefully those people that have received those tokens, they can also hear how we're doing this extra stuff in the future that's going to help with the token utility, price, etc. So why it matters that you're yield farming and earning TWA, why it actually starts to matter.
Yeah, that was fairly seamless. I think I messaged you after I got in and said, look, this is incredible. Like, not only do I believe in this, but the yield farming idea is great. And then I think the way you explained it, the way the community came out to support it, it felt very seamless to me, right? I guess is the best way I can put it. And quite frankly, I would have been fine if you didn't do the airdrop, just because it was still great, just not as great as it was. You know what I mean? So that was, I don't know, that I'm a little bit more relaxed.
Had to be done. If I say I'm going to do something, it gets done, whether it's at a cost to me or it's not a cost to me. If it means that it has to be a reverse rug and I end up out of pocket, I think this is the first reverse rug in history. Yeah. But if it means that I end up out of pocket, I end up out of pocket. If I say something's going to get done, it'll get done, unless it's not possible to get it done anymore for any reason.
Sure.
Always.
Sure. That makes a ton of sense. And by the way, I saw this in the chat, and I don't know, and we've never talked about it, but there was somebody who said in the chat, where was it? This sounds amazing was how it started. This sounds amazing. Sounds like I should invest. Is this project available to view on GitHub and kind of check things out? Yeah.
Yeah, all open GitHub. In fact, if you go, so in the logo, if you scroll up a bit, Jared, in the logo, from the dashboard, the TWA logo, if you scroll up, TWA logo is in the left-hand side. Yep. That takes that one. Yeah. The far left, top left corner. Maybe I'm catching up my end. Yeah. Yeah. And then the GitHub is on the socials tokens, on the social symbols on the right-hand side. The GitHub's one of those. Open GitHub, you can see the contracts for the migrator contract and for everything we've done. The token contract, the migrator contract, the buy and supply contract, and the yield farm contracts.
Yeah. All very cool, all very transparent. And then you see in here, integrity of the space is imperative, and Adrian has proven to have integrity. Jaspo kind of gives it a plus for Adrian, and Ataxia or Carlos, depending on who's talking to him. Pretty much Adrian always calls him Carlos, and I call him both. So I just don't call him for dinner. That's something I don't. Many of you probably don't get that joke, but that's all right. That's so
I didn't have anything more on TWA unless there's any specific questions. And thanks for listening. To understand, I think it's important to bring everyone up to speed as to where we are and what's going to be happening. But I haven't got any more specifics that I was going to run through.
No. I think that is a pretty good overview, and hopefully we'll open this up while I'll vamp a little bit. If you guys have questions, please drop them into the chat. It's a great time to do it. And just anecdotally, this is me just endorsing this, not because these guys are on the stream, but I try to preach about being smart with your money, being smart with your gains, and we've talked about that on previous streams and some of the dumb stuff that I've done. But what my strategy has kind of evolved into is taking wins and splitting them off into something like this, okay, which is still earning, still investing in the projects that I want to invest in, but then also making money on top of that. And it's not in an area where I feel like I'm losing out, where I'm still cutting edge, and where I can still progress without having to do as much work. And I can focus on kind of the question that we have in the chat from S. Curry. I can focus on DGen things. So you've talked about earlier, this is a good question in the chat. There's going to be 10, 12, 13, 14 funds. S. Curry says, is there going to be a DGen ETF fund, i.e. low cap primitives coming?
Well, on that, we do have a little bit of a DGen ETF fund that's kind of made because of me. We did do a Strudel ETF, which counts as a low market cap primitive, and actually is like unlike any of the other ones that's there. So one of the things that we're gonna do early in development is have a front end for that Strudel ETF.
Okay.
And we're looking at a bit more of an incentive. It's already incentivized in the Luna hedge fund, but we're looking at ways to make it more attractive to your average DGen, and make it a bit more fun. But it's already there, and we do want to make something that's made like in the spirit of the Nerd Quarter, which is a bit more experimental,
right?
And yeah, we have a lot of design space, and it's just down to how the market evolves. But we are really looking to do all sorts of funds, right?
So we would, so I can be even firmer. So there is definitely going to be a front end for what we call the Mir Ibrahim fund, which is the Strudel fund. That'll actually come out before the solar. Before I do that, so I want to get layer 2 in place, so everything benefits from layer 2 going forward.
Yep.
Right? That's the priority. Then the Mir Ibrahim fund, which is already in place and working, will have a front end dashboard just like this on this dashboard, but it'll have its own panel. And I intend to bring liquidity back to Strudel. Strudel is a great project, and it is going to be supported by me from a liquidity perspective, and not only for TWA but for Strudel itself as well.
Sure.
Yay.
Sure.
I mean, that is a commitment. That is a commitment I'm making.
You know what?
That's great news.
And Carlos is making a similar commitment from his side on Strudel as well. So people that are holding Strudel, we helped nerd token holders yesterday. Between us, Carlos and I.
Oh yeah, we can start.
We'll come on to that in a minute. We'll come on to that one in a minute. It's the next topic. But we helped. Well, we're going to be doing the same for the Strudel community and having that integrate with the TWA community. So when we help Strudel, help is the wrong word. When I add and the project adds liquidity to Strudel, it's going to add and benefit liquidity for TWA. So both communities are going to get. And when we got quite the shared crossover, there are guys, particularly in Carlos's channel, that are, well, I think, Jared, you're invested in both, aren't you? In Strudel and TWA, right?
He sold his Strudels already.
I did not. I had to change wallets because somebody called me out in the chat. So I didn't. Nobody knows what my other wallet is now that has since invested in it. But
the good old jet ski accident.
Oh my god, it was unbelievable. But yes, I'm in both. One that people saw and were like, who the hell did that? And I said it was an accident. All right, I thought I was I had to say that it was me. It was by accident, Escare, and it said withdraw. Damn it! I tell you guys all the time. The reason why I'm here is to learn. Okay, and if you look, it's a whole. I don't want to get into it, but at the end of the day, I did something accidentally. It caused a sell, and then I had to say it was me, so everybody knew what my wallet was. And so I bought back under a different wallet that not a single person, probably not even my wife, knows what it is. Okay, so that's where it is.
Secret rules. That's good.
Secret.
Everyone should have some secrets to rule.
That's it. Yeah.
For a rainy day.
Yeah. S. Curry says we got some alpha on Pint, though. Yeah, because you got to see my wallet. You're like, why does this guy have 6 figures of a token that's been dead? Well, it's because it's not dead anymore.
Yeah, because it's not dead. Let me tell you guys, Strudel is not dead by any shadow of a doubt, and it is going to get integrated into, and we're going to do some cool stuff with it.
Adrian, I need to go buy more, man. Don't tell me.
Well, you better had.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where we were. How did we get into? Oh yeah, good, because we were answering questions. So hopefully that asked the question about, and there will be even more. I mean, like, it's not just Strudel. That some of the other tokens funds that we've got are while they'll have a primitive at the top of them, heading them up, all the other tokens will be very low cap, like kind of as you get further down the chain, from the universe at the top, then each of the primitive funds that are feeding into it, some of the sub tokens will have loads of headroom, because there'll be a sexy new version of what the primitive that's heading that fund up has already done or is already doing, or it'll be the competition for them. And so I think that's where that's where we see, I mean, the kind of interest that's behind that question. That's why when you say, well, okay, why is anyone going to go into these sub funds? Well, because some guys might go, yeah, okay, I like the universe, that's great, and I'll have a little bit there. But what I really want to be doing is in the super aggressive place, where there's loads of super headroom. And that's the incentive for people to go into the lower in the stack, and that lower liquidity in the stack feeds up to all of the liquidity at the top in the universe fund.
Sure. And by the way, I'm bringing this up because it was my question the other day, which applies to what you're talking about right now. I asked in Nerd Quarter to you and to Carlos when he was talking about healthcare crypto, and I said, look, I don't really want to deal with healthcare. Can you give me an ETF through TWA that includes healthcare? Because that interests me. Like, I'm a cynic when it comes to healthcare everywhere, and not just on the blockchain. And that's from a previous career. But if there's a place where I can invest in an ETF that was a part of it, I would love it, and I would do it because of that. And then I don't have to stay on top of it. I trust you to be doing the research, vetting the best projects. Let me put it in there. I know Solve's probably one of them, but like, I would stay out of it. So I love that idea about the building down stream a little bit. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Carlos, and I might go a bit further than Carlos has said, but this is Carlos's principle, and I completely agree with it. I think the one thing that could be bigger than DeFi is crypto healthcare. I think crypto healthcare could be bigger than DeFi.
That's a statement there. I like that statement.
Because the reason why is because it'll pull together somebody watching the TV. Wow. I've got people in my grasp here.
No. That was a gift that I just played. Yeah.
Because healthcare's money and AI and cloud and everything. Right, it's going to use the DeFi solution. It's going to use the cloud. It's going to use blockchain cloud. It's going to use blockchain AI. It's going to use everything, and the data itself is probably the most valuable.
Yeah,
personal data is I think the most valuable data of all, and this is Carlos talking. I mean, Carlos knows way more than I could ever do. But basically, I think the thing that people value more than money is health, and if they can preserve their health with their money, then they will.
Right. And you know what's the only way to properly manage genetic data? Using this stuff.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it.
And that's and that's it's like we already have ways to get the data, right? That's already possible.
Right.
But we're like, everyone who's in healthcare is stuck by not being able to use the data, right? So it's the data is like like Adrian said, it's like the most precious data, but it's worthless unless you upload it like this.
Right. Right. By the way, Testy McTesterson, with about 7 digits after his name, says, I feel healthcare can be grouped under a broad category of just data, which is kind of what you said. I mean, when we talked about this last, Carlos, the same deal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of duplication of private information on the web at the moment. How many websites have duplicates of your home addresses for delivery, et cetera? No doubt about it. I mean, really, the big point for me is like, it's essentially, you'd have to find a way to integrate privacy coins with data, because like we just talked about with my issue with Nerd, I had to dox my wallet about an issue, right, and now everybody knows that's associated to me. So like, one slip up like that on your health, what do you just go get another identifier?
No, I mean, yeah, that's the cool thing. That's one of the problems they're solving by making the care cards, like they're like sectioned off. So like anyone could know your care card, but they could not get access to the details
whole thing. Right. Okay, fair enough. Good things. We go down that path for 2 hours if we wanted to, and I know there's a little bit there's a little bit more that we're going to get to, because you alluded to it a moment ago, Adrian, about doing something for the communities, a la liquidity and other things. So I don't know how you guys want to set the stage for that. I do have the link you sent me queued up though on yours.
NFTs.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we don't want to talk about liquidity for Strudel any more than we just have, because we're gonna figure it out, but it's gonna happen. So
love it.
This is kind of, I think they're not linked. So just to uncouple that, they're not.
Sure.
What we're going to go on and talk about next is not linked to doing that. Although well, I'll cover it in a minute. So yeah, NFTs was the thing that we were going to have a little bit of a chat about next.
Yeah.
Obviously.
By the way, I have a NFT artist booked for next week. We just have to give him a date.
Really?
Menlo. Yeah.
Okay,
Who?
so we can.
A guy called Menlo.
Menlo? Sweet.
Yeah.
Menlo? Sweet. Cool.
So we can plug that into the end of. So I wanted to cover something at the end of this NFT section, Carlos. I wanted to cover something about what we talked about, and we can talk about how that artist or any other artist might feature into that. But I'll line you up for that. But obviously, NFTs has been a fairly big week for me personally on the NFT front.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't know whether, Jared, you wanted to speak more generally about NFTs to start off with, or any questions around that.
Have you bought any NFTs this week, Jared?
Have I bought NFTs this week? Not this week, no. Well, it depends. I continue to buy art, which is kind of doing the same thing, or like the ecosystem. Yeah. But no, I have not. I did follow, obviously, Adrian's posts about this a little bit. So obviously, NFTs are only scratching the surface, in my opinion. And there's new and better ways to DeFi, to invest, to find alternative ways of value, and how to get liquidity into those value. So I think it's fascinating. I'm by no means an NFT expert, but these two guys are looking at it from two different perspectives. Obviously, we've talked about art and the whole ecosystem and what that can do, and UniV3 is essentially going to be leveraging it, and that kind of goes into this conversation here, but in a completely different way. So Adrian, that's all I really wanted to say. I'll kind of pass it back over to you, and we can get into your personal week, and I have that link up to show, and then what you're planning on doing with it.
Okay, excellent. So for those that don't know, the band Slipknot released their first digital art this week, and I made the decision to go and buy that. So I own that. It's the first Slipknot one. It'll always be the first Slipknot one, and the reason I felt it was important, I like the band and I like the NFT, but I think this particular one, for the exposure that it got in the national press. Have you got the links that I gave to you?
Yep. Sorry.
In the actual Telegram, if you share those, the exposure that it got in the national press, and then what I did while it was, because I like to use these things as thought exercises as much as anything else. So what I did was I trawled around the Reddit, that's the NME, right? And this is, to my knowledge, the first kind of NFT that's got out into that kind of national press pre-sale. Okay, sure. I don't know of another one. Even Lindsay Lohan's one, and I don't think it got a lot of traction. This is in NME, Kerrang. This is in ABC News. Yep. It hit every news channel out there. I think the Kings of Leon. I think the Kings of Leon album release was huge, and I think that's another good usage of NFTs, and people are loving it. But I trawled around the Reddit pages, and I wanted to understand how far we'd got around with our messaging more generally, not this NFT particularly, but how we got around and what level of adoption we were at, because it became apparent that a lot of these guys wanted to buy this, but they didn't have a clue what Ethereum was, how they would get there, even though there was a link there. So a lot of the Slipknot fans were really keen on buying it, even though a lot of them didn't understand and were saying, well, what's to stop me taking it and just printing it out there and doing what I want to with it. But most of them absolutely got it, but didn't know how to get there. And a lot of the blockchain people didn't know it was actually happening. So the guys you'd expect to be going for this. So I kind of saw this thinking, shit, forget about the fact that I'm going to be able to get this relatively cheaply and that's going to be great for me. As a thought exercise, it was like, look how far we've actually got to go. Even with the hype cycle we are on NFTs right now, currently,
no doubt.
Look how when you get something hype like this, look how difficult normies are finding it to understand how they can go out and end up with it.
Yeah.
And look how we're not very good at telling the rest of the world there's this really, really cool thing out there that you guys all want, but we're not educating you enough to how to get it. And that showed me the headroom that's not a negative thing. That's right. We need to learn from that, because that showed me how much headroom there could be on NFTs when we get that right. Once we get enough people to understand that something they care about is on the blockchain in an NFT form or any other form, but particularly NFTs, once we get that, I saw all that energy from that Slipknot community, that would all get transposed into, well, fuck, now I know how to go and buy this, right? And I'm going to buy it. And we'd have ended up in a price war rather than a lack of knowledge situation that we were ending up in. So as a thought exercise, I found it really interesting.
I agree.
As a financial exercise, I'm very pleased with it.
I got to be honest. I looked at it when you posted it, and I was like, that's it? That's all you had to pay for that shit? Like,
I'll share with you, I've already turned down $500,000 for it.
I bet.
What?
Already said, forget it. Well, that's going to happen in a day, right? And I also want to test this, right? Because I don't like any of my own confirmation biases if I have them, sure. Right? So there is a counter argument to say we're in the middle of a bubble. NFTs are not going to go any further, and they're overhyped. And yeah, there'll be some use cases for them. I don't happen to subscribe to this, but there'll be some use cases for them outside art or anything like that. And then I look back at history, because when you don't know something, you have to look at evidence that might assimilate to it to try and figure out. And either way, I still think the NFTs that we've got currently end up being valuable. I'll explain why, right? So colored discs, vinyl, never really caught on, right? Everyone said that you were going to get customizable colored vinyl, even picture discs. But I'm talking about pre-picture discs. I'm talking about colored vinyl when you could buy a limited run of a Stones or a Beatles. By the way, it's not my genre, or my area, but they never did catch on, and people are saying, well, I'm assimilating it to this. But I'm saying it could end up that it's flat and it runs and it ends up being the coloured vinyl. Thing is, either way, it's a win-win. Either way, it's a win-win. If you look back at that color vinyl now, because it didn't catch on, there's only a limited amount of them, and now everybody wants them, right? If it did catch on, well, it's the first of something that's huge and massive that's caught on, so it's really valuable. So either way, in 5 to 10 years, something like this, I'm not talking about this one particularly, but something like this becomes really valuable because either it's a really rare novelty that then fans of that topic that it's a novelty of, they want it for that reason, or it's one of the pioneering first things of something that drew and is massive.
Yeah,
either way, NFTs end up having some kind of success story.
100%. And also, like, I think it's very relevant. Jared asked me, how do I value stuff, like, in general? Yeah. And I told him that it's like a function of how useful I think other people will find it, right? So the way, like, every artist I've talked about NFTs, when they start hearing, because usually I'm getting a lot of people like, okay, I'm in the music industry, whatever, I don't understand blockchain, let's talk about NFTs, right? I just ramble on for like half an hour, and I start like telling them that like the use cases that they could get out of it, and the way that their mind gets blown, and just like, right, and then they just start thinking how many places in the industry this changes. That tells me that it's not a fad, because if I was like excited about colored discs, right? How many people in the industry would find that useful, right? It's like a whole different thing.
Sure. By the way, Henry the 12th.
The point Adrian did is still like fantastic, because either way, even if we're wrong, we're right.
Yeah.
You end up with the $50 bill that was the bill that was never supposed to end up in circulation because it's misdrawn or whatever. It's the novelty. That's the thing that ends up being worth a fortune.
Right. So there have been there's a request for me to actually play the NFT.
So it's great.
I'm going to do that. You two are not going to be able to hear it, but I will, and everybody else, because it's going to be through my desktop audio, so you guys won't hear it. So
all I'd say is, I don't know whether he's hit the button already.
I haven't. No.
Okay. All I would say is Clown is one of the co-founders in Slipknot, but his particular thing is he's one of the lead percussionists. So listen to the drum changes and drum beats in it, because that's where Clown is that's his thing, right?
Got it. Okay, I'm going to play it in 3, 2, 1. Wow. That was pretty sweet. I'm not going to lie. I had never actually done it full screen. I just watched it. Full screen.
I've never seen it full screen.
That was way more immersive and kind of horrifying. Like, the art was really well done. There's some details in there that I was really impressed with. And not only that, like, I was feeling the percussion. There was like a little Hans Zimmer like tension string in there too, which I'm a big fan of. Like, just kind of building like the intensity of it along the way. Like, holy shit, that was really good.
He knows how to do that. I'm gonna get myself. I did some research. Guys might not know this, but the older ones of you guys might remember there was like in the 2000s there was like this phase of photo frames, digital photo frames.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
And they kind of petered out. I don't know whether people use them so much now, but they've just started releasing NFT frames.
Oh yeah.
That's interesting. Holy shit. It all comes full circle.
Right. And effectively it's the same technology, but with an Ethereum address in it. I mean, like it's no more than so. What I'm considering doing is having that in one room in one of the offices somewhere, up on a wall, playing.
Constantly.
Well, yeah, I think it becomes white noise after a while, so I might end up putting staff into stress positions whilst doing it.
Oh my God!
We'll outsource to the military around the world to.
You need a proximity sensor and not tell anybody about it.
Yeah,
That'd be. Tell you what, man. That's the kind of shit.
A better solution, Carlos. Yeah.
That's kind of stuff we'll read about in the news, where it's like, Adrian Woodward had an accident at his home when somebody tripped a motion sensor and they lost their mind. It took an axe to his wall. But that was that's really, really cool. Like I dig that a lot, and quite frankly, like that little snippet. First off, like I don't have anything against Slipknot, but it's not really like, I kind of miss that era a little bit. That said, I was into that, and I'm not even really I'm not even really a fan. You know what I mean? Like that. If you were a fan, oh my God, $500,000 does not shock me at all.
Right.
And that's way low. Like that's when I saw what you paid, and I'm not going to dox it any more than I already did by scrolling down. So
no, I've got no problem with that. I never have any problem with people looking at it. You can show people what it's for. I mean, I look at Grimes. She put out some work that's an NFT. I really like it actually, and that recently sold for $6 million. I think I saw it go.
Yeah.
Arguably, I think this one's got the punch on it, but you might argue that I would say that.
It's a bigger audience too.
No doubt. Exactly. It's a bigger. Well, I don't know whether it is a bigger audience. That's very interesting. The Slipknot audience is huge and rabidly fanatical. So I don't know. I would argue that in 5 or 10 years' time, there's likely to be a bigger fan base still for Slipknot than there will be for Grimes.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying Grimes is huge. I'm saying.
Oh, right. So that's kind of. I don't know whether we've got any more on this, because I really wanted it not to be so much about me getting this, but more that story about.
Yeah.
More that story about what I observed and how much work we've got to do, guys, around. When cool stuff's happening in our space, we need to get out there and tell normies about cool stuff.
Yeah.
And tell them how to get involved in stuff.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm restating your point, but it takes a point of passion like this to get people to learn, as dumb as that is, right? Like, why should you look into DeFi? Well, not because I say to, or not because Adrian says to, or because Carlos says to. Like, you got to find the reason for you. However, if what gets you interested is a Slipknot NFT, and then you go down the rabbit hole, I'm in. Okay, like that's great. Yeah. It's an onboard. Quite frankly, it's the best thing Mark Cuban's done for the space. Like Mark Cuban is 1,000 times more productive than Elon Musk, and I know Elon Musk gets a touchy subject around here, but Mark Cuban is far more productive because NBA Top Shots is onboarding people into NFTs with credit cards, and then they can see what the hell else they can do. That alone,
is Mark Cuban behind that?
Yes.
Yeah. He's making so much money.
Well, he's behind it in so much as he got the NBA to officially license it through whatever CryptoKitties or whatever it is. So he's driving it, and then he's going to be the one who's driving. Like the NBA, I guarantee you, the NBA is on NFT tickets, if not next year, the year after at the absolute latest.
Yeah. I mean, it's a huge problem they're having. Like, we're dealing with scalpers forever.
Yeah. For the same reason, right here on Adrian's NFT, creator share 10%.
Yep.
Creator share for NFT tickets, 10%. I don't care. Share it as many times. Sell it 1,000 times if you want. I don't give a shit. Right?
I'll make you a kiosk. Right?
Yeah, you can sell it right outside the stadium. You can buy one. You do whatever you want because we're getting 10% every time. So like that alone is going to add adoption. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So no. You make some really valid points, and an industry now. So the record industry has been looking for DRC for years, trying to get that to work, and they're finally realizing that NFTs is their answer to
that's right
copyright, right, and distribution.
Right. But actually, I think that the industry should be a little bit worried because the thing that the industry, the added value that they give to artists is that they protect their rights.
Well, that's right. My point. It's now you don't need that rent seeker in the middle now, and so you can do exactly what Kings of Leon have just done and release their through cheap distribution, but still preserving copyright. Right? They can release their album, and that's exposure. That's the huge adoption to people now buying it. That's their first NFT. So that's the same as the ticket. So when you've got the guy that's gone and bought on the same day his Kings of Leon album that he's listening to on his NFT digital radio in his Tesla, right? He's listening to that on the way to the game with his NFT tickets. That's where we start to bridge these gaps and people understanding what NFTs can do for them. And then, as you say, they go down that rabbit hole to start understanding, okay, well, there's money in this. There's other DeFi, healthcare, whatever there might be. There's these other things that we can do.
Yeah. And by the way, Testy McTexterson brought up a couple points here that I want to talk about. And then there's one question that I want to pose to you both because I've been thinking about it a lot. And I'm going to take kind of a more lascivious, maybe that's not the right word, a little more of a dark angle on this. So, but first, before we do that, Testy McTesterson says the use case for NFTs I'm most interested in is for things like certificates and proof of authenticity. And I'm going to keep going. He's got like 3 of them. So I'm going to get through all of them and then we'll talk about it. Once people start catching on that they can sell their official Indiana Jones whip that was used on set and there's no risk of it being fake, I think there will be a wave of people selling the stuff. So obviously very, very cool. And then the next thing he said after that was have an NFT of your house deed and use it as collateral for a loan. Yeah. Like that 100%. Level of adoption would be unreal. And I think it's inevitable. It's just a matter of timing, right?
Yeah. And the thing I really like a lot is, for example, I'll give you an example. My university title for medicine is only valid in my country, right?
Right.
But it wouldn't be too far-fetched to have a decentralized title registry where people could, like, you could have validated institutions that issue NFT titles that are valid worldwide.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Sure.
And that's critical for healthcare safety for locum doctors. For locum doctors that want to travel or where there's a requirement where you absolutely have to validate that actually somebody is a qualified GP and you don't want to go through the aggravation because you need a doctor, right? We don't want to go through the aggravation of individual administration systems, some of which might not be being run very well.
No kidding.
In certain countries. To have the power of something like that for a locum doctor to say, yeah, we're okay. This guy registered. He's the real deal. He's registered on the standard global blockchain run either on Ethereum or on Polkadot or on Cardano. It doesn't matter because at that stage they're all interlinked.
That's right. Yeah.
They're all interlinked, so it doesn't matter where it's there. It matters that there is a repository that's global in the way that Carlos has talked about.
You should be able to take a loan against your university title. Make it instantly useful.
Absolutely.
Well, it'd be a lot more useful than what we could. So here's the thing: you could do that. kind of like the music conversation we had the other day, like taking loans against like future royalties. You're taking loans against future earnings, right? Like I have this, it could be done. By the way, locum is not a term commonly used in the United States. I Googled it to make sure that I was right, but temporary, right? Like stand in, fill in. So that way, like, is this person qualified? He's helping out. How do you know? So locum, LOCUM for anybody who maybe I'm the only person that's dumb on the stream. I don't know, but that I was like, wait a minute. Okay, now it makes total sense. So absolutely. And then the next thing in the chat is from S Curry, which kind of goes down my path and what I wanted to say next, because you've seen all this stuff that's been created. Recently, you're starting to see music NFTs, you're seeing art, and there's a lot of things that can be put on the blockchain and are freely accessible. What's to stop entertainment from being put into a place where there is no owner, there's a blockchain, and it can't be censored? Anything, really, not just entertainment. I'm going to give like a PG iteration, which is a movie is released, somebody bootlegs it, puts it on the blockchain, anybody can see it, it can't really be deleted, it's hosted by the blockchain, right? Like you can't, whatever. So like there are major implications, and I can't be the first person to think of that. So that's Let's stop there. What are your thoughts on that? Because I don't want to go too far in my next.
So that's going to happen.
Yeah,
that's going to happen. Somebody's going to cut and paste a blockchain. Somebody's, it's going to be worse than the kind of content that you just talked about. Sadly,
that's exactly right.
Right. It's going to happen. Some vile, nerdy tech person is going to do that, and the fact is that because it's immutable. With the good, with the bad, it's not going to be possible to take that down.
Right.
Sadly,
I think it's very interesting.
There are other aspects that law enforcement can use.
Sure.
So, it instead of hosting those pictures, if you're found some way to be hosting a node that is supporting that content, you're likely to be in the same kind of hot water that you'd be in.
Oh shit! Okay.
But again. Obfuscation of that is possible. So, frankly, we're going to get into a position where we are going to get that content. Sorry, Carlos.
But you know what?
Go ahead, Carlos,
I think it's very interesting how there's two things, right? One is that it is both uncensorable, but it's also public. So if you want to post like awful stuff, you have to have you have to have a wallet attached to it, and if you want to own that, you can't like support that and not show it at the same time. And if you want to show it to someone, because this is like the whole value of the thing comes from being able to share it with someone else, right? Like Adrian is sharing his NFT, and because more people want it, makes it valuable, right?
Right, for sure.
If it's content that's like on a larger scale, seen as basically, because that's also like a thing. What's censorable, right? Because I saw some like disgusting NFTs for sale the other day, like a guy eating an old woman's like nail out of her feet.
Oh,
and
God.
and it was purposefully for that, because they wanted to like share that feeling, right? But if you buy that, then you have to explain it to everyone who looks at your wallet, right? So you have to live with that, with what you own and what you're supporting. So a little bit, I think that censorship, or rather like content moderation in the future, is going to be a lot of like, what's the consequences of supporting this, right?
Mm-hmm. I think that
consequences of support. I think we're saying the same thing, Carlos and I.
Yeah.
We move away from consequences of holding illegal content, and you move more into the realm of supporting a system that provides illegal content.
Sure. And I think about the disruption that this will cause, and not just piracy, okay, of again, I'm going the PG route of like, someone takes a sporting event and says, look, you couldn't watch it, but I'm going to put it up here, and now anybody in the world can, and there's not anything the NBA can do about it, right? Like, you could do that, at least in snippets. I think that's going to be ubiquitous eventually, as long as this continues growing. That where it's not going to be contained. And so that is going to absolutely disrupt those industries. Music, entertainment, television, movies. It's going to be, you got to find new ways to monetize. That's right.
Yeah. And that's where the ticket monetization, you're just monetizing different content.
Different aspects of it,
Ticket, and some content providers will fail and go.
That's right.
Because the thing is that there's two sides to that argument that you're saying, and it's awesome. I think it's awesome because, like, on one side, for example, if someone starts bootlegging NBA matches or whatever, there's this notion of that it's much easier to discern what the original is. So, for example, if someone starts making their own NBA Top Shot moments, they won't be nearly as valuable as the originals because they're not, right?
Definitely.
Exactly. And the other side of it is, so we are in a system right now where you have like corporations managing the rights for artists. And the thing is that let's like, I used the Dave Chappelle example in the chat we had the other day. I think it's really great, where Netflix was showing
Chappelle Show.
The Chappelle Show, right? Yeah. On they just launched it because they acquired the rights, and Dave Chappelle was pissed because he didn't own those rights, and he made like a set about like the ownership of his rights, and he was saying like his grandparent was a slave, and that if he would see him now, he would say, "Son, you sold yourself to the white man." and when he did that, the viewership of the show on Netflix dropped so much that the owners of the rights sold them back to him for peanuts because they were worthless.
Absolutely.
So, and the thing is that with NFTs, basically artists can, if they don't like the deal they have with their distribution agency, they can just post at any time. They can just post their own content on the blockchain and say it's theirs, and it's going to be instantly worth more than the company distributing it.
So I think you're right, 100%. And the Chappelle example is a great one, right? Because we're still talking about the monetization of that content. What I'm saying is, eventually, the actual consumption of content itself will be worthless because it will be ubiquitous. So it's the other parts of it that you can monetize, and that's the stuff that has more creator control, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it also makes content. It's probably going to make it all content free because people are going to make content to create a community they can monetize off of instead of charging for the content.
Right. Right, because like think about it right now. I don't know. I mean, neither of you guys are American, but obviously have ties to America. Like the NFL is one of the largest, really, entertainment businesses, probably the largest entertainment business in the world, and they do an incredible job. And they hold their rights so unbelievably tight from viewership, piracy. They come after you. They'll find you in court. Like they are aggressive as shit. When it comes to, if you simulcast an NFL game and they can find you, they're not going to be like, send a letter. Okay. They'll see you in court, right? Like that. Yeah. That's how they handle things. Somebody could essentially simulcast or take games and put them on the blockchain this year and disrupt that. And there's nothing that can be done about it. That's crazy to me. Absolutely crazy to me that it could be done that way. So it's going to be very interesting. I think there's going to be some, obviously with any change, there's friction. But I'm also excited too, because there's better ways to do it. Like they're monetizing things that the idea that they're making money on for their organizations comes from 1950, right? Like 1960. Find better ways. And hopefully that's what they'll do. You know?
Yeah. And think about it this way. So there's a tipping point on that. If the guys who want to watch the football matches and are watching them for free on the blockchain continually do that, and eventually it becomes to the point that the subscriptions aren't enough to support the NFL, and the NFL gets into serious danger of not carrying on,
correct,
right?
Yeah.
Then what you do is you get a tipping point where enough people care about the game that they go, do you know what? I'm not going to watch it for free, because if I do, with everything that's going on, it's going to kill the game I love.
That's right.
I won't be able to watch it. And you get that balance. So what you do is you get the effect where the huge volume, the gains that they're making in the NFL now, which are unjustifiable and are at the expense of the audience, right? You see those wane back to a point where they're still making money, they're still profitable, can still run it, can still do everything they do, because that's the balance where, okay, then the subscription's worth enough that it keeps it going, that people pay for it.
Sure.
Because they know if it only needs enough people, it only needs the world to say, right, now we're only watching the NFL on blockchain. It only needs the NFL to put a post out and go, do you know what? Everyone's watching it on blockchain. We can't afford to pay for X, Y, and Z staff this month or this year. It'll only be half the amount of games. You watch quite quickly how everyone stops starts watching it again. Right? It's because nobody wants that, right?
That's right. No, it's a good point. It's a good point. It's like a great field level. It levels the playing field quite a bit.
Exactly. And it'll do that for everything. Carlos has just hit the nail on the head exactly in the music industry. Well, with a great example with the Netflix thing is what happened there was a rebalancing of something that was unjust became just again because of the way that it handled there. And this was it's just two different parties that we're talking about. In the one that we just talked about there, they're physical people parties, and in this one we're talking about two different distribution entities, but those two parties will rebalance themselves into a way that works, because nobody wants to lose watching the game, right?
No, yeah, you're right. You're right. I mean, and look, I'm a big Premier League fan too, and the Premier League guards those rights like crazy, but it's also the most widely viewed league in the world, right? So it can be done a bunch of different ways in a bunch of different sports. Yeah.
Arsenal playing Liverpool tonight as well.
That's right. They are.
I'm not too sure I want to be talking to you too much.
Ooh, I mean, we're terrible.
I'm a little bit worried.
Why?
As an Arsenal fan, I'm a little bit worried.
No, you shouldn't be.
But let's not go too much into football. I'm sure we might bore some people. What Carlos and I wanted to talk about was a bit more about NFTs and the other NFT that I happened to purchase. Again, it's not about me.
Yep.
Because we're going to do some nice stuff with it. And Carlos is an absolute legend for what he knows to do with NFTs. He's unbelievably clued up. But if you share the screen, Jad, on the other NFT that I bought from Carlos yesterday that some previous followers of the channel might be aware of. Sadly, I think we lost the video, but where Carlos was talking about it when he owned it before, the NFT. Are you able to find it?
I'm trying to... I sent Carlos a message to say, for some reason, it's not working for me.
What is...
the link?
Yeah, what about this one? Oh, what, the link I gave you?
Yeah, what the heck is going on right now? Sorry, I'm a little out of sorts. There we go. I got it. It wasn't opening. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, here we go. And bringing it down now. There we go.
Because we all kind of own this one in a way, right?
Yep.
So just for anyone that wasn't following this before, So Carlos and I both got a soft spot for this particular hash graph, hash mask rather. Because Carlos previously owned it, and it's a particularly good one, and it kind of works with the whole badger concept of it. And I liked it a lot, and always wanted to own it as well. And Carlos was sort of was exploring what he could do and the way he could go with it. We, like I say, we collectively own this. So I never wanted to. So Carlos, if you scroll down, you can see it was originally called the Father, and then Carlos renamed it the Badger.
Yep.
He was good enough to sell it to me.
Okay.
Yes. I forget, yesterday maybe. He was willing to sell it to me, and we wanted to give the benefit of in this instance Carlos's community to sale. So between us, what we did is we effectively made the proceeds of the sale from me to Carlos actually go into the nerd token, and we gave it. What was the pump, Carlos? Was it like 500%, or have I got that out?
It was like 500%.
Was it? Yeah.
It went all the way to $100.
So what we've done there is we've used an NFT as the source of doing some good, right? This is the central thing that we can coalesce around, right? But this is now an important. Yeah, there you go. So this is now and people were able to sell because Nerd Token people have held for a while and they were hoping to get something out of it. So people were able to get some gains and that's important, right? People need to feel good about tokens and communities and so on. So what we were able to do is around an NFT, Carlos and I constructed an idea that did good for people wider than just him and myself, right?
Sure.
Massive kudos to Carlos on this. Huge kudos, right? Amazing, right? And so what we wanted to do is it's a really important NFT to us, right? And now it's really important to Carlos's nerd community because they benefited from what we did with it. So now we start to get a collective ownership of this. What I wanted to do is not lose that lineage that we've got. So I renamed it the Bearded Badger.
Sure.
Okay. So it kind of it builds that lineage. Now, what we want to do is give more benefit to the communities again out of it. And so what we're announcing today is in my community this time. But there's nothing to stop people in Carlos's community joining my community as well. And then it, as I say, it benefits everybody. But what we're going to do, and I'll let Carlos run through the details, but we're going to run a competition. And Carlos is an absolute genius in this stuff. So what we're able to do is we can create a derivative of this hash mask, such that it's based and built on the original here.
Okay.
But we are going to build it in such a way that it builds in the concept of the beardedness, and it builds in animation, and anything else that the community want to come up with. So what we're going to do, Carlos, correct me if I get any of this wrong, right? And it's not within the concept, because this is Carlos's idea. Let's not have any shakes about it, right?
Sure.
What we're going to do is we're going to put it out to the community to give some ideas around what the derivative of this NFT should look like. And I mean, this NFT now is worth in excess of $20,000. So why is that important? A derivative of it. This is becoming quite an important NFT. It's getting its own backstory. Those things matter. The guy who buys it off of me next for I don't know how much. Let's know. He might keep the lineage, but whether he does or he doesn't, that lineage never goes away. It's part of its history. It's part of its blockchain. It's part of what it does. But if he's got any sense, he keeps the lineage, or she keeps the lineage, because it's got some value to it. So what that then does is any derivative NFTs off the back of that also have value, because they're from the root of a NFT that has its value itself.
Sure.
Does that make sense? So the animated version of the Bearded Badger, the owner of that will be able to say, well, I've got the animated version of the Bearded Badger, and the Bearded Badger is a really important NFT that's worth $20,000, right? That gives value to that second one in itself. And what we're going to do is we're going to say to the community, okay, you tell us, give us some ideas about what you think the animated version of the Bearded Badger should look like. We'll get an artist to build it, and the one who we think came up with the best idea that we got the artist to build, we're going to give them that NFT.
Wow.
We're going to give them that. We're going to give them that minted NFT. No cost, right? So it's open to everybody.
Sure.
But that's something.
You know what we could do? Like once we do this derivative, we could because you had like this idea of building a hospital and all that. We could sell the NFT derivatives for like say $100, and raise funds for a cause.
So I think
cool.
what we'll do. Well, I think what we'll do is we'll certainly create a one-off during in the way that we just talked about. A one-off. What we might then later on do is maybe so people aren't disappointed. We might make a second one that would be different. That is a collection, a limited collection. But there'd definitely just be this one-off for the competition, right? That way, then I think we're hitting. Carlos, I think we're then hitting both nails on the head there, where there's a one-off derivative with the animation, and then so people aren't disappointed, we can make a low-cost collection version that we could then use those.
Yeah,
funds.
I mean, usually you have. So there's a lot of like this idea has a lot of legs to hash it out, and because I think that the base thing that we want to do is create a positive impact, and around this we can galvanize a lot of effort and power, like just to create art in one, like that's just one part of it, and then to use that energy to do something great. And regardless of how we do it, because you could do stuff like auction the one off if you wanted to, or like there's a number of ways, because also if we get like a really big, if it gets hypey, the artist that's selected is going to be able to use that as like a starting point for a NFT career themselves, right?
Sure, yeah.
So there's a lot of added value and that's the thing. We want to add value to the thing by making it important to the community, and sharing like the story about it, and making it like a shared story, right? Because that's where things get value.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because it's a different twist on an existing ecosystem that if obviously this goes the way that you intend, it could be very, very cool and replicable, and probably something that a lot of people would be willing to do, you know?
Yeah. And there's a lot of, you can select any, like, it just depends what makes you vibe, right?
Yeah.
And the cool thing about NFTs is that there's a lot of avenues for that. Maybe it's music, maybe it's like a story. So I really like the fact that creative people can, like, we can turn creativeness into value, like straight up.
Sure.
And in a world where a lot of creatives are feeling like they're left out, this is a huge venue for them, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really cool. I'm excited to see that happen. Okay, so just to reiterate, this is starting today.
So I think what we need Carlos to do, because you can see there was an open dialogue, and I quite like the fact that we're doing this openly and trying to figure out the right way to do it. I'm still keen. I'm still keen on minting something for a giveaway, and then working on the derivatives. I think that's what I like to do.
Yeah.
I think we need to add artist value. So I think what we need to happen is Carlos to maybe jot some thoughts down into a post about packaging up what it is we're proposing and whether people want to get involved. Maybe we even hold a vote around it. Maybe we let the communities decide. Do we want to make it a free mintable one, or do they think there'd be more value if there's an auction for it? Do they want to get involved in? Do they actually want to get involved in the design of the animated version, or would they prefer actually we just get an artist to do their impression of it? I quite like it, and so that might be a series of votes that we have to put together to establish how the community would like us to do it. Because I think we should do what those guys want, because I want it to become like a community held NFT, albeit I own it, but you understand my point. The ideas and the concepts that are coming from it, community held, and then those NFTs that come from those concepts to go out to or be available to the community. I.e., I don't own those, right? And so those those are available. So I think what we need, Carlos, is it possible? I don't want to paint you into a corner, so just say no. And I know you've got some travel coming up, but is it possible to put some thoughts down around the art of the possible, and maybe 2 or 3 votes that we might want to pass with our communities to ask them what they would like us to do in terms of a direction with this. Is that something you can help us with, maybe?
Yeah, 100%. We can get a post going like probably today or tomorrow, and we, because like I really like the fact that this can be like a community event. And also we should do, whenever we're ready, we should like present the thing on a virtual world. That's gonna be fun.
Yeah.
No doubt. That'd be cool. I know what you're talking about there too. So,
Carlos and I have got our eyes for a TWA sandbox venue. We've got our eyes open for that. So eventually, a lot of these community type tokens, or any of these sort of NFTs that we hold, not just what I hold or what Carlos holds, anyone in the community, for TWA and for Carlos's community. There'll be a space there. Carlos has been doing some amazing experimentation with some online browser rooms, but what we really want to do is ultimately end up with a blockchain venue, hopefully somewhere near the Atari venue on Sandbox would be.
Yeah. Will bought already a huge lot, and I think everyone's gonna be super impressed of how big that thing actually is.
Cool.
Yeah, I've seen it growing. It's maybe I'll rent some space off of Will.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that with the amount of land we have, we can have a whole like nerd city in there.
yeah,
that's exactly. Pretty awesome. No, I think this is cool. It's a good idea. It's a different spin. So stay tuned on that. You guys will have more details either in the Nerd Corridor or TWA. Which will be, both. I think, both, which will be pretty cool. And S. Curry said, you can rename NFTs. Yeah, so like with Hashmask, one of the things, like if you bought a Hashmask, you were awarded NCT name change token, which is how you name or rename the NFT. So that's what Adrian was referring to.
And with the ones, we lost one of the videos, but with the dynamic NFTs that are coming, I know Jared's really hot and keen on this, right? But with the dynamic NFTs that are coming, where you can have shared ownership and shared variables, then you'll be able to change a lot more than just.
Oh, right. Yeah. We can have like an NFT with a vote, like a community held vote to make its beard grow.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
I think those are sweet, man. I think
me too.
Those are very, very cool.
Super
very cool. All right, so we're running up on about 2 hours here. I think that was the majority of we want to certainly get through. We still got about 20 or so people viewing in various capacities here.
Questions.
Yeah. We got anything to close it out? Questions. S. Curry, you guys have been really good in the chat. Been very active, asking good questions, which I think helped it all kind of come together. So I know I learned a lot, and I'm obviously going to be following this that I now have on the screen, the Adventure Token, and some of those developments, because pretty much every new fund you can kind of count me in. This is my investing style, my hedging style, and I dig it quite a bit. So. Obviously, Adrian, thank you for coming on. Carlos, thank you for coming on and talking about this stuff. And it's all recorded. We can produce it, put it together. I can send it to you.
Put it on an NFT.
Put it on an NFT. The unveiling of the unveiling, which would be very cool.
We should sell NFT Alpha.
NFT Alpha. You don't. Ooh. The next iteration of the paid group. Holy smokes! We just did it. Is
there any question? Is there any topics for this one? I've got a question for the people listening. So, are there any topics on the next one that we do that you'd like us to cover and talk about?
Yeah. That's a good question. The other thing I would say too, Adrian, if nobody responds now, it's interesting about the chat. I get like a breakdown on people viewing these, and quite a few people watch after.
Okay.
So it's weird. Like I'm like, oh, okay, that's weird. Only like 100 people or so tuned in, and then I check back the next day, and it's like at 280 on views, and I'm like, oh my god, people actually come in. So if you're watching this after it's been recorded, and you have an answer to that question that Adrian just asked, what do you want to be covered? What do you want us to talk about? And you can't type it in now. I posted the link to TWA. in the Crypto World Adventure, you can go drop it in there. You can obviously go to Nerd Quarter in there, and we would see it there as well. You can also do it in the chat. I'm always checking, but don't be shy about coming with those suggestions.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can buy art, by the way. Now you have my blessing to do so. We talked about that last week. Yeah. And it was like $50. Now you should buy a bit.
Now you should buy, 28, 30, something like that right now.
Yeah, it's 27 on my screen.
Yeah, I was just looking at that too. I'm like, I might have to scoop some more. Pop a link to Adrian's Telegram group too if people want to ask in there. Careless says he did buy the dip. Good for him.
Well done, man. Good effort.
I've been dollar cost averaging. Good for you. These are good stuff. Okay, I know I put it in here once. Yeah, there it is. I'm going to repost from earlier.
What have you been buying, Sco?
There we go. I continue to FUD for better entry. Would you stop it? Watching my paper profits erode so you can get a better entry. Yeah, ARTE, ARTE, which we talk about quite a bit. I guess I could pull it up since I have it up, but
we had a whole segment about not buying it last time, and now you can actually buy it.
Well, I always said to people, like, look, it's great. Believe me, things pump. Like, this was our pump into like $50 with us talking about it, people getting excited, and then look where it's come back down. I said on the stream not to buy it right then. Like, it was a bad idea. We can move markets temporarily, but not permanently. So, let's be smart. Now you're at a good place, kind of mid-range. Mid-range stuff. All right. I do not see any other questions in the chat. I think this has been awesome. I'm excited it's recorded. And like I said, I'll kind of cut it up and send it to you both so you have it. If you want to pull clips off of it, share with the community. I think there's some really good stuff in here that people will want to watch later on too.
Well, you definitely go ahead and just share it in my community without.
Beautiful.
You don't need to,
okay.
You need to ask.
I always am very hesitant about that. I don't want to be dropping stuff in,
You're absolutely fine to share any stream stuff in my chat.
Dude, by now I just assume everyone has a screenshot of everything I've said, so just do it.
Fair enough. Well, Adrian, thank you so much for joining, spending some time with us on the weekend talking Adventure Token. Obviously, Carlos, I know you're part of the team as well. Always fun talking to you guys. I think everybody learns a little bit. And thank you, everybody that's popping in. At one point, we had like 32, 35 people in here. So they liked it. Very, very good stuff live. And we always see a big numbers pump afterward.
Awesome.
Good. All right. It's been fun. Thanks.
All right. Cheers, everybody.
See you.
Thanks, guys.
Go Liverpool.
Brilliant.